In 5.9 Next-Gen Ambulatory EHR, the new Electronic Prior Authorization or EPA functionality can be used to manage prior authorization needs. This helps you meet state requirements for EPA. NextGen Healthcare partnered with SureScripts to provide the complete EPA service, which is a web service hosted within the EHR and is a solution to the manual prior authorization process. The EPA feature in the Medications module will also be available for version 5.8.3 via a special hotfix release. Providers can request EPA in the Medications module when they prescribe a medication and before they send the prescription to the pharmacy. If multiple meds are prescribed, the EPA needs to be requested for each medication one at a time. In order to speed up the EPA process, there are a few best practices to follow. You should always add a diagnosis to the medication because it is typically required by the Pharmacy Benefit Manager or PBM, and a warning message will display if a diagnosis is missing for EPA. A default pharmacy should be assigned to the patient to eliminate the warning message about that. You should always complete all required medication details such as quantity and SIG before you request EPA to prevent any delay. Next, let's go to the Medications module to learn how to request and complete EPA for a medication. We're currently viewing the Medications module for a patient. Notice we have a prior authorization status column here to display the EPA status. If this column is not available, you'd click the Grid Preferences button to add it to the display. Because EPA is based on the PBM associated to the patient, you must run a formulary eligibility check before EPA data can be obtained. This patient has multiple RX eligibilities enabled. If this is not enabled, you'd be prompted to run the RX eligibility before you can request EPA. To get started, let's prescribe a medication for the patient. Click the Prescribe New button. You can use either the medication or formulary search to search for a medication. I'll type the first few letters of Coumadin to search for it. Select Coumadin. If a patient is eligible for more than one PBM, you must select one for him. You can do that here or when you request EPA. To select a PBM for the patient, click the formulary drop-down arrow. Select PBMF planks. If prior authorization is required, PA will be flagged in the coverage column. To prescribe the 5 mg oral tablet for Coumadin, you'd double-click the dosage. I'll do that for you. The drug interaction window opens. You'd click the Acknowledge button to approve the drug interactions, and I'll do that for you. Click Done. Click Select. Now the medication is listed as temporary. Notice the Initiate EPA link is disabled. If you point to the link, you'll see that EPA is disabled for the temporary medication message. Because the PBM needs complete information for the medication to authorize EPA, I'll complete the details for you. Click Accept. The medication is now active. However, the Initiate EPA link is still disabled. Let's take a look at the hint message. You can see it's now disabled because generic will be dispensed for this medication. We want the medication to be dispensed as written, so select this checkbox. Click Accept. Now the Initiate EPA link is enabled and PA required is flagged in the PA status column. You must request and complete EPA for medications with the PA required flag, or you'll get the warning when you attempt to send the prescription. To request EPA, click this link. Because no diagnosis was selected for the medication, this warning alerts you that the PBM response might be delayed. You can click Cancel, select a diagnosis, and then start the EPA process again. We'll click OK to proceed. Because this patient doesn't have a default pharmacy set up, this warning displays. To process anyway, click OK. Notice the PA status is now in progress. Keep in mind, once you click the initial EPA link, the medication is locked to prevent any changes until the PBM responds with the next step. It normally takes just a few seconds to get the initial PBM response. Now you can see the PA status changes to action required. This indicates that the prescribing provider or clinical staff member must complete a questionnaire for the PBM via the Manage EPA window, which is also called SureScripts Accelerator tool. This window can be accessed in provider mode or patient mode. First, let's access the window in the provider mode. Click View. Select Manage EPA. The Electronic Prior Authorization window opens. You can view the EPA tasks for all patients associated with the current provider. Click the Close button. To manage EPA tasks for the current patient, you would access the Manage EPA window in the Medications module. If your screen resolution is larger than 1024 by 768, you'll see the Manage EPA button on the toolbar. We don't see that just yet because there's not enough room. Instead, we have this drop-down arrow. Go ahead and click it. Click Manage EPA. The Electronic Prior Authorization window opens with the EPA tasks associated with Jonathan Swift. You can view the tasks, the patient demographic information, the due date to complete the questionnaire, the date the prescription was created, and the medication description. To complete the questionnaire for Coumadin 5 mg tablet, select this task. Now the SureScripts Accelerator's landing page displays. You can see the patient's name, the medication, and the EPA case number at the top. You can also view the patient, payer, and provider information here. Click Start. You would answer each question based on the patient's clinical information. For example, this patient hasn't had any listed medications. So for this question, select No. Click Next. This bar shows your progress in the questionnaire. If you make a mistake, you can always use these buttons to return to the work list or start the questionnaire over. To save time, I'll complete the rest of the questions. After reviewing all the answers, click Submit. Once you complete the questionnaire for Coumadin, the EPA task is removed from the work list. Now, let's take a look at the EPA task history for this patient by clicking this tab. You can see that the EPA task we just completed for Coumadin is listed here, and the EPA status is now changed to In Progress. We're all done, so click Close. Notice the PA status for Coumadin is changed to In Progress here as well. This time, it will take a few minutes for the decision to be made by the PBM. You'll receive either an approved or denied response after you submit the questionnaire for a medication. If you receive the approved response, you can follow your normal process to e-prescribe, print, or fax the prescription. All necessary PA details will be sent with a prescription. If a denied response is received, the provider can appeal through the Manage EPA window. It will be resubmitted to the PBM, and additional questions potentially will be sent to the provider for completion. You can still send the PA denied prescription to the pharmacy, but the patient may need to pay more for that medication. Next, let's take a quick look at the other PA statuses that may appear in this column. Click here. If for some reason the PBM closes the PA request, the status will change to closed or canceled, and the provider will need to decide to either continue with the prescribed medication or switch to prescribe a different medication. The error status indicates errors were encountered during the data transmission. You can request the EPA again for that medication. And we're all done. You should now know how to request and complete EPA in the Medications module.